Now you can see me. Now you can't. Now you can see me. Now you can't. Full disclosure, Ann and I are both a little buzzed right now.
Just a little
Or
bit.
I'm buzzed and Ann's drunk. I don't know.
I don't know. You can probably tell from I'm all. It's not just the heat. I have a little alcohol crush. And maybe
You've
a hot
got your
flash.
alcohol. Yeah, sorry everybody. Since this is an 8 o'clock show, both Ann and I went out earlier. We didn't go out together. We went out separately. And might have had a couple of drinks. It's not my fault, Ann. Ryan at Louis was making old fashions tonight, and he's the best one. When he makes an old fashioned, I have to abide by the old fashioned rule, which is 1 is not enough and 3 is too many. So there you go. And I want you to know, Ann, that I not only followed the rule, but I'm following it up with a glass of water.
I'm having a lovely herbal iced tea. It's peach and
Oh, good job.
and lavender.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So, sorry, you guys, if we screw this up today, it's not my fault. It's Ryan's fault. And it's Pat and Elliot's fault on your end, Ann.
Exactly.
Because they made you go to a fantastic restaurant and enjoy
Actually,
delicious food and drink.
Duncan picked it out, and after he picked it out, I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of expensive." And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, we gave him 2 choices, and they went with that one. And I was like, "It's not going to be worth it." It was worth it, people. It was totally worth it.
I love it when I spend a lot of money on a meal and it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 It was yummy.
That's good. I'm glad. I am glad for you. Now, what
Oh,
was the name of the establishment?
it's called Echelon, and Jenny, they do a chef selection. I know, I love that too. So I was like, "Oh, I want to come back here for my birthday." It's like 7 course. I was like, "Oh, I want to go to there." So
I didn't know that was a thing
mhm,
until we went to Mercat a la Planca in Chicago, and there
mhm,
was like a chef thing. And I don't know if
mhm,
that's good or bad, but all I know is I loved it because I didn't have to do a thing. I did not have to make choices. All I had to do was choose what I wanted to drink, which was
mhm.
hard enough. And then they just kept bringing you things that were fucking delicious.
Yeah,
Sorry. Fucking delicious. Sorry
yeah.
again.
Stuff that was like I wouldn't have necessarily ordered if I was ordering on my own. I was like, and they're like, "Oh, and here's this rabbit dish," and I was like, "Rabbit?" I was like, "Oh, it was yeah,
Rabbit's yummy.
yeah, it was very good." And
Yeah.
then our waiter was entertained by us that he brought us extra dessert.
Nice. See, the problem now, and now that you've eaten rabbit, you're going to be eyeballing those rabbits that are hopping through your yard a little differently than you would before.
Oh, I am
Yeah.
because I'm mad that they eat my beans, and I was like, "I know what you taste like."
And from what I understand, I don't know a lot about skinning my own food and eating it, but apparently a rabbit is literally built to be eaten. The skin practically falls off of them.
That's
There
what
you
I've heard.
go.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
Anyway,
okay. Yeah,
I
good
think we're
talk.
very off
Yay.
track.
Like, have we even been on track today? Happy
Mhm.
Sunday, everybody. Uh,
Happy Sunday.
happy solstice. It is, the solstice was Friday night, so it is officially summer, and it has come in the in the Midwest, in the northern Midwest. It is summer for real. It is currently 94 degrees here in the great city of Kalamazoo. The heat index is 103 here, and at one point, my cat wanted to be out in the heat today, so we went and scooped her off the porch, and she was like a little limp noodle. Like, so we
Jenny,
made her come inside.
it's only 88 here.
What? How'd that happen? Must be
I
Heat
know.
Island, urban heat island here in
Uh-huh.
Kalamazoo. But yeah, so we had to basically scoop her off the pavement because she wouldn't come in and make her come in and cool off and get water and eat her dinner because we had water out there, but she's like, no, I'll just sit here in the sun. I don't know. Maybe she's trying to
I'm
tell
kidding.
us something. I don't know. So anyway, it's effing hot and humid. The heat index today was, like I said, 103. The dew point is currently 73 here in the great city of Kalamazoo, which is stupid. I've
There's
seen
more
it
water
worse.
in the air than air.
Yeah, so it's like breathing soup right now. Ugh.
Mhm.
And it's not good soup either. It's like Campbell's chicken noodle, which is not good soup. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, happy solstice, everybody. Happy Sunday. We went and saw a movie last night. Should
We
we talk
did.
about that?
Let's
Let's
talk
talk
about
about
that
that.
movie. Okay.
Okay. All right. Let me kick this off. So we've literally spent the first 5 minutes talking about, I don't know, whatever.
Random
So
shit.
all right. right, let me bring this onto the screen so you know what we're talking about. There it is. Yes, you guys, we are reviewing 28 years later, a movie review by the Brother Sisters, Scene.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. But before we do that, let's talk about this. Hang on. I got too many screens up and I'm starting to get confused.
Jenny.
I know it's my own fault. This is self-inflicted. Not looking. Okay, there it is. Yes. Hey everybody, happy Juneteenth and happy Pride Month. So Juneteenth was on the 19th, and as always here in the great city of Kalamazoo, there were many fireworks. So yes, like
Hmm.
literally lots of fireworks because you know um and it was nice. And actually, it didn't go too late. And I was really tired, so I slept through most of the fireworks. Sorry, everybody, but it's yeah, it's a good day. And it's Happy Pride Month, everybody. Why are there no fireworks for Pride Month?
I don't know. Maybe because it's already too fabulous already, and they don't want to like make it so fabulous that no other month can compete with it.
That's
They're
probably
very
true.
gracious that way. I don't know, but maybe next
Okay.
year, Jenny, it'll be a thing.
I feel like there should be fireworks every night of Pride Month. I really do. So maybe I can start making that happen. So yeah. Anyway, ooh, that water is delicious. All
Mhm.
right, good. All right, Ann, you want to take us through the welcome back for everybody?
I'd be happy to. Welcome or welcome back. We are Ann and Janice Brothers. We are sisters, and our last name is Brothers. Wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. There you go. We're in our 50s, Gen X, which means we don't cry at work. And we will secretly judge those who do. So we used to, Generation X got in trouble for having feelings. So we just, mush everything down. And I work with a lot of I work with some millennials and a bunch of Gen Zs, and they are not afraid to cry at work. And I was like,
What are they
I
crying
walk.
about?
I don't know because I'm so uncomfortable that I like literally turn around. I was like, oh, I came for this
I
jar of
will
pickles. Goodbye.
uh, I will offer this pet and walk away. Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So we do not cry at work. We cry at home under our beds, which is the respectable place to cry, where nobody can see you and where you can't make other people uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's I've been eating my emotions for years and eating my feelings. I
Exactly.
like
I'm not
after that
saying
I
it's a
actually have emotions. No, I totally agree with you. It's just yeah, not
yeah,
built for. And
yeah.
part of it too is I'm also a really ugly crier, and I
Oh,
do cry. I'm like I am easy. I am actually relatively easy to tears, but I will cut my own hand off rather than cry at work. Honest to God, I'm like if cutting this hand off will keep me from crying at work, then I'm gonna do it.
yeah. No, I would
Hmm?
die first before I cried at work. I'm like, die first. So anyway, yeah, that was so that's the thing. We do not cry at work because I'm an ugly crier. I'm like, what's the point of crying unless it's going to be ugly? It's like I'm not. That's what makes us not cool, hip, or sexy, Jenny. We are like we cry ugly or we don't cry at all. So
Like everything puffs out. I turn pink and then everything
uh-huh.
just puffs. It's
Hmm.
crazy. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's so
nose
dumb. So
goes. Yeah,
yeah.
it's gross.
Yeah. My nose grows 4 sizes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like the Grinch's heart at Christmas time. That's what my
yeah.
nose does.
So anyway, as you can see, we talk about smart stuff, dumb stuff, fun stuff, and any combination of the three. And we are not cool, hip, or sexy. And we know this because none of our underwear matches. So
No.
some of it might be
No.
kind of expensive, but it's not an expensive in a sexy way. It's expensive in a supportive way. Um,
So you're talking like a Victoria's Secrets where you have the sexy bra underwear combo, like it's red or black or yellow or whatever.
yeah, none of that.
Yeah, no, that doesn't no,
None of
that's
that.
no,
Okay.
no, that's
So we're not
hilarious.
a true crime, celebrity, or influencer podcast. And that doesn't mean we aren't interested in them. We just don't want to talk about them. We want to talk about other things. So that's what
Till
we do
next week. Then
until
we're gonna
next
talk
week.
about that.
Then we're going to talk
Yeah,
about some true crime.
totally.
Um,
Yes.
we've been told we're good to listen to when you want to learn things about stuff. Thank you, Chip Maley. And because it is very hot outside and you need a distraction from the heat, maybe you might have the air conditioning. I don't have our air conditioning running because we have an old farmhouse and it is a bitch to get this house cooled down. So we just don't even bother. But I'm sure maybe you're at home and it's like it still feels warm in your house because it's hot out and
Mhm.
Still needs some distraction. This podcast is not PG or even PG-13. And if you haven't noticed, we are going to be talking about
Sorry.
a disappointing fucking movie today, and we're going to have to drop some more F bombs. Join us
Sorry.
on our. Oh, I forgot to add a slide for this. Spoiler alerts. There will be
Oh, I did
spoiler
that.
alerts.
I
Okay,
got
good,
you. I got
good.
you. Yep, I got you. Yep.
Okay.
I'm on it.
Join us on our website, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube. Like us, follow us, hit the bell, leave a review, give us your feedback with our questions and answers and our polls. Alexa, play us. She'll do it. There you go.
She's nice like that. She likes us.
Mhm.
We're
Yeah,
friends.
we're
Friends with
friends.
Alexa. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we like that. Uh, awesome. Yes, and all of those things you said were true. So please listen to us, subscribe, like on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and the Amazon Music. There you go. Put your word in, hit that bell, smash that button.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
like us. Please like us. And let's talk about the Smart Dumb Fun stuff that happened this week. I'll go first today. As you
excellent.
can see, I have a new T-shirt, and it matches my kitten hat. My kitten hat that is amazing because kittens are great. And this it's my axolotl questions T-shirt, so it's a funny. Get it?
Mhm.
I axolotl because this is the third axolotl T-shirt I have. I have this T-shirt. I have an axolotl playing an accordion, and I have an axolotl playing a bass clarinet. So um, I really like axolotls. I think they're
Mhm.
cool. We should do a show on them because they're amazing.
Oh, we totally should. It's a good
We
idea,
should.
Jenny
We haven't
Brothers.
done that yet. I
Mhm.
I think so too. So
Mhm.
yay. So yes, also it turned summer this week, and as a result of it turning summer, make sure you drink lots of water because it's stupid outside right now.
Yeah.
It's the weather right now is it's hurtful. It's
Mhm.
hurtful weather. Yeah,
It's hurting our feelings.
it's hurting my feelings.
Uh,
All right, Ann Brothers, now you.
yeah, I have a new chicken. And you're like, what? Duncan let you run out and get another chicken? No, this chicken came to us on Thursday. I saw this little chicken in my driveway and I thought it was one of mine. And I was like, I don't have any brown chickens like that. And it turns out she was just hanging out. I went out there. She ran right into my front garden and hid. So I'm like, all right, I sprinkled some scratch around. She came out, she pecked up the scratch. And then I didn't see her again on Friday. I was like, oh, maybe she went home. And then Friday night, we went to shut the coop and Duncan's like, he was counting the chickens and he's like, there's 12 chickens. I have 11 chickens. He's like, there's 12 chickens in this coop. And so I go out there and it takes me a minute. Nope, there she is, her little brown butt smushed in against all these black and white butts. And I was like, holy cow, I have a new chicken. So, she's been hanging out with us since she got herself into the run. And, so I'm not sure if somebody dumped her because they saw that I had chickens or she just like, hey, this looks nice. Look at all those happy chickens. So she's a bantam, which means a smaller version of a chicken. So she's a little brown chicken, and I don't know whether to call her Bronwyn or little brown hen. So we'll see. I don't know how long she'll stay. I'm not like making her stay, but right now she's hanging out and it's hilarious. I was like, look at this little brown girl. Hope she gives me little tiny eggs.
Maybe she didn't like maybe the other chickens at her other place were mean to her, and she's hoping for something better at this coop.
Well, my
So
girls aren't being exactly welcoming because chickens are not welcoming, but they haven't like hurt her or anything. They're just like, don't stand next to me.
you're not from here.
Exactly.
There
So
you
it'll
go.
it'll take
That's
a few days before she's really integrated. But yeah, if she stays, I'm like, she's got a home here. She just it's like, look at that. I was like, Duncan, you can't even be mad at me because I didn't do it. She did it.
I think that's so funny because I've got like various stray cats that show up on my porch and get some food and water, but I've never had just like rando chickens show up before.
Random chicken. Yeah, there she is.
Yeah.
So yeah. So little
See,
brown hen.
for our listeners and viewers, there you go. Another great reason to have chickens because then just other rando chickens just show up and there you have it.
Yeah, and I've heard about this happening to other people before. Another chicken will like abandon their place and come to a place that they think is better. So I don't know if she did that. She's not talking, so I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if she'll stay, but I hope she does because it's really funny to see this little brown chicken walking around the yard. Mhm.
There you go. Nice.
There you go.
Hey, let's should we talk about this movie?
Let's talk about 28 years later, Jenny Brothers.
Okay. And you want to kick this off or you want me to do it?
I can do it. 28 Years Later is a sequel. It's the sequel to the 2002 film 28 Days Later, which I got to tell you was a really brilliant movie. It's
Right.
also kind of a sequel to the 2007 film 28 Weeks Later, which is a pretty good film. I think if 28 Days Later had never existed, 28 Weeks Later would seem better. But you know, it was a decent enough film. The Both this one, 28 Years Later, and 28 Days Later, were directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland. So they had the same writers directors. The second one, the 2007 film, had different writer, different director. This one is starring Jodie Comer.
Homer? Yeah.
Yeah, Ralph Fiennes and Alfie Williams plays the kid. It's set in Scotland almost, which I was excited about because I went to Scotland in April and I was like, oh my gosh, there's Scotland. Oh, sheep. Anyway, it's set in Scotland almost 3 decades since the rage virus escaped from a lab. So it's if in case you're unfamiliar with these movies, it's a zombie type movie, though instead of the Walking Dead you have a virus that's infected people, and it spreads very quickly, like within 30 seconds of being infected you are infected. And yeah, so anyway, it's 3 decades later. The island of Great Britain is kept under strict quarantine by the rest of the world. They don't want this virus getting off, and they don't want anybody coming into the island because, you know, there's people who are like, I just want to check it out for a little bit. What could possibly go wrong? So it's under strict
Everything.
quarantine. Both the uninfected and the infected people that have survived have adapted, and this is without any help or interference from the outside world. So, you know, they weren't rushing to send aid packages. They have ships, you know, patrolling the borders. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out. They don't want to know. This film is a glimpse into some of those lives of the people that have been on this island, either raised in this environment or you know, once experienced the world as it was and now experience this new world. So it's a glimpse into that. I have some comments about who they chose to highlight. So there you go, in a
Very
nutshell.
good. Nice. There you
Hmm.
go. Now you know. And it will come up during the broadcast today about what it is, what sort of the premise and the background of the movie 28 Days Later, which is the original. We'll talk a little bit about that because you can't not compare the two movies. So just so you
Also,
know, if you want more information about, if you've not seen 28 Days Later, which came
mhm.
out in 2002, and you want to know more, just know we're going to get to that. Okay.
And also, if you have not seen 28 Days Later, you really do need to see that before you see this film.
Yes.
Yeah, you really,
It's pre
really,
it's your prerequisite. You
yeah.
can't see 28 years later. Now you can skip, as far as I'm concerned, you can skip 28 weeks later. You can
Yeah,
literally go from 28 days later to 28 years later
yeah.
because 28 weeks later, as far as I'm concerned, is just filler. So
Yeah,
it's fine.
it offers nothing new to either story. So,
Correct. So, and I'm going to bring us back here, and I'm
mhm.
going to go ahead and put our banners up. So we have 5 questions that we're each going to answer that deal with this movie. And let's start with question 1. And I'm going to ask you this question. Here we go. How does this movie compare to the original 28 Days Later? See, I promised we would talk about the two movies. Here we go.
I thought 28 Days Later was a very original movie. It kind of came in, you know, when zombies were starting to be very, that was the thing in
Cool,
movies.
hip, and trendy. Yes.
It was the cool, hip, and trendy horror genre at the time, was the zombie movie. And I thought this one did a very good job of putting a new twist on a very old genre of movie. And it was, oh God, it scared the hell out of you. And of course, and it was this new fast zombie because we were used to the slow, lumbering zombies, and these zombies were freaking fast. They were coming on strong. And it was the whole idea of a virus, a man made virus that had gotten out into the public. And of course, then they do what a lot of zombie movies do is they introduce the zombie, which terrifies you, and then they introduce the humans, which terrifies you even more. How the humans change because of a zombie apocalypse, how they turn on each other. And this does that, is the very similar trope as to all zombie movies. They did it in a very unique way. And it was just, it was, it was exciting. You weren't sure that there was going to be a happy ending up until, even at the end, you're not sure. You're like, it ends in this hopeful way, but you're not sure there's a happy ending. And it gave you a lot to think about it. When I first saw it in 2002, I was 32. And I was like, oh yeah, this is all the things I'm gonna do to survive a zombie apocalypse and populate the next world. And now that I'm 55, I'm like, I'm gonna lay down in the street and die because that sounds I don't want to live during this. I don't want to live through a zombie apocalypse now. So, yeah, it's it was. I thought it was an original, and compared to this, 28 years later, what the best part of 28 years later was the ending. That was the most original part of the movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
and we will. That's one of my questions. Is
mhm,
we'll talk about that. So hold that thought when it comes to
I
the
will.
ending of this movie, because we're gonna both we're gonna both
Uh,
roll some thoughts on that.
I was going to say, watch 28 Days Later. It's a great film, and if you feel like skipping 28 years later, is perfectly okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer the same question. How did this movie compare
Mhm,
to the original? And I don't believe there's a comparison at all.
mhm,
I feel like the movie 28 Days Later started us with the whole zombie thing again. It was so
yeah.
good and so exciting and so like heart pounding that it really did bring back. Because if you look at like Dawn of the Dead in 2004
Mhm,
and Shaun of the Dead in 2005, and it sort
mhm,
of rekindled this whole zombie thing that we loved and adored back in the late 70s. If you look at the show The Walking Dead, which came out in like 2008, which is a TV show,
mhm.
there's so many things that they just straight steal from the movie 28 Days Later.
Uh-huh.
The big difference is that when we, the movie 28 Days Later gives us the beginning. It starts in a lab with monkeys that these group of scientists are essentially infected with rage, and this group of animal rights activists break into the lab and they're going to rescue the monkeys, and they end up getting bit by the monkeys, and that's how this rage virus starts. And it's not like when you get the rage virus, you don't die, you just get fucking murderous. You turn into basically a raging homicidal maniac, and that your only goal in life once you get infected is to just murder. And that's how, and you just murder anything and everything that's alive in front of you. So that's what's so terrifying about it, is that, you know, you still have all of you are still physically capable of doing everything that you can do, and your whole focus is to just kill. And
Mhm.
it's a really simple premise, and it's really interesting. And the cool thing about that is that we start the movie with that scene, and then the very next scene is this bicycle courier waking up in the hospital. He's been out, he's been in a coma for we don't even know how long. He wakes up and he has no idea what's going on. All he knows is that London is a ghost town and something terrible has happened. And that's his we have his introduction to what has happened now. So like I said, we don't know how long he's been down. It's been a while. But and that's kind of, and if you look at The Walking Dead, which came out years later, that's pretty much how the premise of that show starts, is that
Mhm.
Rick gets shot, he's a sheriff, he gets shot, he wakes up after the zombie apocalypse has happened. So I'm like, they ripped off 28 Days Later. Good
Totally.
job.
Yeah, totally.
And my problem, how does 28 years later compare? There's no comparison. They don't cover any new ground other than there's been some sort of evolution of the infected. That's all we know.
Yeah.
That they're not the same as they were. They're finding ways to keep from starving to death, and as a result of that, they've managed to evolve. Because at the end of 28 Days Later, they're basically just waiting for the infected to starve to death because they don't have any other thoughts or abilities to do anything other than just murder. So there you go. So that's one of the things that's different. Um, the the biggest comparison for me is how well they tell the story in the first one versus how poorly they tell the story in this one. So
Mhm.
there you go. So that's how I feel. That's how they compare. As
Mhm.
far as and question two, what worked in this movie and what didn't work and why?
The part of where Ray Fiennes has a small part in it. I thought that worked really well. He has he plays a doctor. He was a doctor before the infection. He was a doctor. He is not a doctor anymore. Now he's making, and this is the simplest way to put it, he's making an art installation. And basically, it's a memorial to dying. And it is phenomenally beautiful. And his character is lovely and really I really wanted to know more about him. What didn't work? What did? Oh, the ending. I liked the end. I know the ending is very controversial. I thought the ending was awesome. I thought that worked. I wanted that movie. I wanted the last 3 minutes of the movie to be the movie. That worked. What didn't work? The pregnancy did not work. The kid's motivation did not work. His motivation to take his mother to see the doctor did not work. I thought the island idea worked, but I needed more storyline for that. If you wanted to focus on that story, great, focus on that story, but they didn't. Not enough. So it ended up not working. It could have worked, but it didn't work. I'm not sure. I don't. The young men from the army, the Swedish Navy that got stuck on the island, that didn't work. You can see how many freaking ideas this movie tried to encompass, and that did not work. So, yeah. What do you think? Why didn't it work? Because it wasn't cohesive enough, because they didn't give us enough information, because they started with something and then they just added a bunch of other things. It's like too many notes. It's like pick. There was 7 stories in that movie. Pick one and tell it well. That's why it didn't work. They wouldn't pick one story and tell it.
The menu was too big.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a restaurant and the menu is like 16 pages long. There's
Right.
just too much of that. And I don't know. I found myself, well, for me, what didn't work is that this movie was straight boring. It
Mm-hmm.
was boring. And you don't want a thriller
A
and a horror
zombie movie to be boring. Yeah.
And that's one of the cool things about 28 Days Later, the original, is that, man, it was heart pounding. It is intense. It is intense. And I was super excited because the beginning of this movie, the beginning of 28 Years Later, was eye opening. It was like, this is disturbing. And it was exciting. And I'm like, oh, we're picking up right where we left off. This is gonna be great. And then it wasn't. And then it just stopped. And there's in 28 Days Later, the original movie, it has this first 40 minutes that's incredibly intense. And then it sort of comes back to tell some story and to let us get some character develop and get to know and like these characters before it drops us into this other very intense, difficult situation. And they're really, like I said, it doesn't cover any new ground.
Mhm.
And that's what doesn't work in this movie, is that they tried to tell all of these stories, develop none of them, and hope you won't notice because there's some great jump scares in there.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of this, and maybe I'm not smart enough or cool enough to get, there's all this like artistic references, and there was all this extra stuff that we're going to put in that just looks cool. It's going to be really cool and people are going to love it because it's cool and artsy. And I'm like, it does not work. It just comes off as pretentious and weird. So,
And then 28 years later, yes, the first 40 minutes is super intense, but they managed to string you along with this possibility that anything could happen at any time. So even as you're learning about these characters and they're moving through, they're traveling to this other destination.
you're talking about 28 Days Later.
28 days, yes, 28
right.
days later. You feel like at any second it could all go to hell again. So you're
And then
always
it does.
And then so at every second you're like, okay, so you're really getting into it, but at the same time you're terrified, even though nothing is happening. And they did not. There was none of that in this movie. None of it.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Ann Brothers, let's go to question 3, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
How would you make this movie better?
Well, I think I talked about that, and when I said, pick a story. If you want to do the story about, the young man, the boy, and his initiation into becoming manhood, and
Spike.
yeah, Spike, the dynamics of this village, how it works, its history, how it works, its problems, how they're trying to fix that, how, that would have been a good story. If you wanted to make a story where a young man, 14, 15-year-old, a few years, Spike, let's say you wanted to make the story Spike a few years later, and you want to make him, you want his story where he's discontent with living on this isolated place, and he wants to explore a place where you can't even, I want to walk until I don't see the ocean. Okay, what's that story? Let's have that story. That would have been an interesting story. The very first scene, we meet a boy, an 8-year-old boy named James, and he's eventually going to come back into the story, and he does at the very end. James's story would have been fucking fascinating. If you wanted to make any movie, you should have made a story about James and about
Jimmy.
Jimmy and his evolution from an 8-year-old to a 36-year-old, and how that, because when you meet him again at the end, you're like, fuck, what? So
It's like,
that's the story. They should have told the story about Jimmy. That's the story they should have told.
well, and that's what you have this first 5 minutes where this scene, it's right. So the movie starts, we're right at the beginning of the infection and the outbreak of the infection, and when people are literally just running for their lives. And that scene, it starts with a bunch of kids, in the bedroom of this house watching Teletubbies,
and
which is disturbing enough.
Bad is going to happen.
And then they know something is bad. You can see the tension and the fear in their faces because they're sitting there watching this. They've been put in here to try to keep them calm, but they know the shit is hitting the fan. And that's how we learn, and that's how we meet Jimmy. And yeah, it's bad. And then you're like, wow, where's this going? And then they just abandon this character and they make references to him. But if you're not paying attention, you miss those references.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of, the thoughts come in your head is like, are we ever gonna
get back to this?
Are we ever gonna get back to this? And then you're like, well, then the movie's over. And then like you said, with the last 3 minutes, you're like, oh, and then the movie's over, and you're like,
yeah,
dang it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's the story. I wanted Jimmy's story. That would have made a much better movie.
Well, for me, what would have made it better is if they had not misused a really excellent cast. The kid that plays Spike is very good.
Yes.
Like I said, Jodie Comer is in this movie, and Jodie Comer is, God, she is, I don't know, she's one of the best actors of our time right now. I really believe she is. And that last 20 minutes where we get to see her make some decisions for herself, and we really see that relationship with Spike is just great. We don't get that. We don't get how tight he is with his mom, and why he works so hard to try and save her. We never get that.
Nope.
As we're meeting Spike and we're meeting her, because she's, essentially she has cancer and she's really sick, but we don't know that. We know she's really sick. We don't know what she has. Hey, Lisa. Hey. Lisa Grippy, how you doing? Okay, so I don't monitor my messages like I should. I saw your message the other day and I've been meaning to get back to you. Real quick, I'm going to take a quick aside. Just know I have much to tell you, so expect to get a message from me soon. A lot has happened since we have last spoken, which has been literally years. So I hope you're doing well. Great to hear from you. And just know that I would love to touch base with you and catch up and see how things are going for you. So peace, lady. Thank you for joining us. All right. Thanks for jumping in. It's fantastic to hear from you. And Lisa, don't go see this movie. Okay. Save yourself some time. Okay. If you've already seen it, but don't go see this movie. Yeah, so I would have liked to have seen them really develop the relationship between Spike and his mother sooner in the movie, to give us some sense of how he felt about his mom, which is, he really loved her, and what he does for her is, it's pretty incredible. So, in the end, and I think that would have worked a little bit more. But yeah, we don't ever really get that. Yeah, and like you said, just developing that story more with Jimmy, or developing story more with the doctor.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Those I don't have much to say about how to make this better. Less is more. That's all I know.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's go ahead and jump in. Let's talk about Ann Brothers. Let's talk about the ending of this movie, shall we?
Yeah. So we meet James. We meet little Jimmy again. Only Jimmy is not a little boy anymore. Jimmy is a grown man and he's dressed like a young prince. He's got like a actually he's dressed like a Teletubby. You know, his whole little posse, they all have their gym outfits on, their what is it? Their sports leisure activity outfit. Their velour tracksuits, and each one
So
is in a
can
different
I
color.
stop you?
Yeah.
Can I give the background here? So
Yeah,
we're at the
go
end of
ahead.
the movie. Um, Spike has sent the baby back to the island. Anyway, that's another story.
That's another
But
story.
we're
You don't need to know.
Spike has written a letter to his dad saying, "Hey, I'm gonna explore the island. I'm gonna walk until I can't see the ocean anymore." And of course, he immediately, you know,
He's
comes
immediate.
across some infected, and he looks like he's dead meat because he's got all these infected, and he comes to this big wall of boulders, and he's trying to climb it, and he can't get up there. And all of a sudden, this group of bleach blonde people wearing their leisure suits appear at the top of the wall. They're like, "Hey, good job there," because he hit a couple of these guys with an arrow. They're like, "Hey, good job, but we're gonna take it from here." And you've got like 8 bleach blonde people wearing their leisure suits jump off of this wall and just start going ham on this group of infected, like, just kung fu Mortal Kombat style. And you're like, "What the
The
actual fuck is
hell?
happening right now?"
Yeah, in a movie where the colors are all muted because when was the last time a new outfit was 30 years ago, and these guys look like they're dressed in the same primary colors as like Teletubbies, and they all
Hmm.
have like and Jimmy's got like a crown and he's got like gold necklaces I mean it is so out of freaking left field,
It
and
is.
then
You never see it coming.
you never see it coming, and I was like, okay, this is the question I want answered. The question I want answered is what has happened? What has developed on this island? I mean, here was an 8-year-old boy, and 28 years later, he has his own fucking cult. And
He
this is how
does.
his cult has established itself. What other cults are on the island? What other societies have developed on the island? Who is traveling? I was like, that's the original story. That is so fucking original. It's like,
Yeah, it was just like, huh.
yeah,
That's all I got. Like, I was like, I think my mouth was like this the whole time. I was like,
me too. I was like, this is the most original thing I have seen in a zombie movie ever. I was like,
yeah, it was epic.
why in the
It
fuck
was
aren't we
amazing.
telling this awesome story? This
Like,
is the cool story.
I had to watch this laborious movie to get to this, the
To
best
get to the
part.
last
So, oh,
three
I'm sorry,
minutes.
Lisa, real quick. We're talking about the movie 28 Years Later, which is the sequel to the original movie 28 Days Later from 2002, and then that's sequel that came out in 2007, which was 28 Weeks Later. So, yeah, but yeah, it's the ending was wackadoodle doo. That's the best thing
Mhm.
I can say about it, and I loved it. I
I
loved
loved it
it.
too. I
And
loved
I
it too.
just wanted, yeah. So here's little Spike, and like he looks up, and here's adult Jimmy looking down on him, going, "Hey man, let's be friends." And
Yeah.
it's like shaking his hand, like, "Hey man, come join us." And Spike's like, "Okay,
And that's where they end it. Like, we don't know what
yeah."
I was like, I don't,
So maybe there's gonna be a movie after this. I don't know. Maybe there will be like 28. I don't know. Christmases later. I have no
I don't know.
idea, but
I don't know, but that was the story they should have been telling. They should have been telling that was an original, totally original take on the zombie movie, and
yeah,
they blew it. I was like, why
yeah.
aren't you telling this story? So
I don't know. So yeah. Instead, we get this other laborious.
let me
At
get
one
this.
point, yeah. At one point I was just like, "Is this over yet?"
Yeah, I was
It's
like, my butt's numb.
I'm like, "I need to go take a walk." Yeah, it's bad when it's and I yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so
So
Ann Brothers, let's do this. Let's give the people have figured out by now that we did not like this movie.
mm-mm.
So let's talk about what you should watch instead. So here's what are 5 movies you should see instead of this movie, and I have some thoughts on this. Do you mind if I go first on this one?
You please do.
Okay, so here are 5 movies I think. So when I was looking at the 5 movies I think you should watch instead of this movie,
Mhm.
they're movies that are either A, zombie related, B, quarantine related, or C, horror related. So the first one I put on my list is, of course, you should just watch 28 Days Later
Mhm.
because it's great and it's interesting and it's intense and it makes you think. And I love that about
Mhm.
a movie like this. My number 2 is The Crazies.
Oh yeah.
because
The modern version.
the
More modern.
modern version of The Craze, which came out, Timothy Oliphant is in that, and whoever else, but
Hmm.
Timothy Oliphant is in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a good looking man. Anyway,
You know
so
and that's
anyway,
one of those movies that gets crazy. It literally gets crazy like right from the beginning. So
immediately it's like it does not mess around with a bunch of backstory in this. They're like, oh, we're 10 minutes into this and there's already craziness going on. So
mhm.
yeah, The Craziest is a great movie. Same thing. Again, you're not dealing with zombies. You're dealing with people who have been essentially infected with homicidal tendencies. The scene where they're at the high school and the high school principal has pitchfork and everybody is you know essentially strapped into their cots.
Ooh,
That scene is
woof.
disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Number three is just the movie Contagion that came out a few
Mhm.
years ago. Steven Soderbergh. It's about a pandemic that escapes China, and yeah, just a great, quiet little movie that talks about what America would be like if we had a contagion that had a 34, 35, lethality rate. So
Yeah. Yeah. Not
it
even
would be bad.
100%. Not even the
Nope.
90s. Not below
Nope.
40%. And we still go batshit fucking crazy. And we would go
Which
batshit fucking crazy.
we would. Number four for me was a classic, 12 Monkeys.
Oh
That
yeah.
if you want a movie that's just a grand, really great
Hmm.
um post-apocalyptic virus movie, damn, that's a
Weird.
good movie. Yeah, Bruce Willis,
Weird.
young Brad Pitt. Um Great movie that kind of you don't see the end coming and then you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Weird.
tight."
It's a
Yeah,
weird little
great
movie.
twist at the end.
Hmm.
Weird, kind of totally disturbing.
Hmm.
One of those movies you're like, "What am I watching?" And then the end hits and you're like, "What?"
What? Yeah.
Twist. Yeah, so that
Mhm.
one, and then finally, I went with number 5 was Children of Men, which is yeah, just a great movie that again, we don't know what the virus is. We don't know if it's a virus. Basically, this movie is very simple. We live in a world where women have stopped having children, and um, that's a not young, younger Clive Owen, Julianne Moore. It's a great movie where he has been tasked with. There's a woman that has become pregnant, and he is tasked with getting her to people that can help her have this baby. And because it's been what 20 years, 18,
Yeah,
19, 20 years since somebody has actually had a kid,
I think
and
the youngest kid is like 18 years, 3 months, and 4 days or something. That's like
yeah,
the youngest person in the world.
yes. So that's a really and that movie is just that movie is not like a horror movie per se. It's a very
Mhm.
thoughtful drama. It's very intense. It's one of those movies that really, man, you have all of the thoughts and feelings watching that movie. It's very good. And if you're not a horror person, you would like Children of Men because it's a good, like I said, it's incredibly well acted, well written, well filmed. That's an Alfonso Cuarón who makes himself a great movie. It's such a great movie. So that's my 5 movies that you should watch instead of 28 years later. So,
And
you're welcome.
Jenny, I'm going to second all of your movies because those are all excellent. You know, and I think of like The Children of Men. I'm like, wow, what a great, or just 12 Monkeys. I'm like, that movie is so much freaking better than 28 years later. I can't even tell you. Well, it's making me want to go back and rewatch 12 Monkeys.
Well, and
So,
it's
yeah,
way ahead of its time. That movie came out in the kind of the late 90s when
yeah.
Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis were kind of at the height of their powers.
Mhm.
And yeah, and both, Bruce Willis is good in that movie. Brad Pitt is fabulous in that movie. And that
Mhm.
was the movie that we're all starting to be like, "Oh, Brad Pitt's a real actor."
Yeah.
He's not
It's
just
like,
pretty. Yeah.
right. No, it's like, yeah. The only thing I'd probably add to your list would be Shaun of the Dead. I think Shaun of the
Mm,
Dead is a great movie. If you and
yes.
also I would say if you want to see a classic example of a zombie movie, a modern classic, I would suggest Dawn of the Dead. That is a
2004
very
version.
2004 version. It's got a great cast, a great underrated cast of really. I mean, it does a good job of character development, which I really appreciated. And plus, it's again one of those movies that even when nothing's happening, it's always you're like any second something could happen, you know. So it keeps you again fast zombies. So I think those are two movies I would add. I would like to add a couple of books. The first one I want to add is Station 11. I think Station 11 does an excellent job of it's not a zombie, it's a flu epidemic
Flu virus, yeah.
that acts very fast. And again, like 28 Years Later, it takes place decades after the flu. So you're looking at the survivors, and I think they've done a much better job of telling the story of survivors than 28 Years Later did. They also talk about the people who travel, and I'm also interested in this island. 28 Years Later, who's traveling around the island? There's always travelers. There's always traders. There's always entertainers. Who is traveling this island? Who knows it better than anybody else? Because that's an excellent story, and that's part of what Station 11 is about. Talk about somebody who's done a very good job of running several different storylines at once and cutting nothing short, leaving nothing out. So excellent book. I would also suggest The Stand by Stephen King. Now that is a weighty tome. That's about 1,000 pages, but whoa, is it a very, very good book. That was one of like
the audiobook version of that is excellent. Highly recommend.
Yeah. So that's what I would recommend. Those two movies on top of what Jenny did. Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 version, and God, what was the other one I said? Oh, Shaun of the Dead, which is hilarious. Showing us that zombie movies could be very funny. And then I would suggest 2 books on top of that: Station 11 by Jenny, help me with
Emily St. John Mandel.
Thank
who
you.
I believe is a genius. I believe Emily St. John Mandel is one of the finest authors of our time. She's a genius. This book is one of my top 3 favorite books ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love this book a mazillion.
Yeah. I've read all of her work, and all of her work is excellent. Every one of her books is excellent.
She's genius.
But in this kind of genre, I would suggest that book. And then, of course, the classic Stephen King, The Stand. And read the extended version. Don't read the small one. I don't even know if you can find the small one anymore, but read the full version of it. So there you go.
That book was one of the first apocalypse books I have ever read, was The Stand. And I got to tell you, there's not a day that goes by that some part of that book doesn't pop into my head somewhere.
Me too.
That's crazy. Me too. Yeah.
It was the first time I was reading that book, and they were talking about the disease that was progressing. And then I was in rehearsal. I was at Eastern as an undergrad, and I was in rehearsal for a show, and I heard somebody cough, and it was like, oh my God, it's coming. So that was the first time I ever had like a book do that to me, where it entered my real life so hard. I was like, oh, this is great. I can't wait to get back to this. So,
well, and that's the best part of that book. And I believe that is when Stephen King is at his best, when he's not telling monster stories, when the people are the monsters, and when biology is the monster. So
right. Yeah, exactly. So we have 7 movies that are better and 2 better books that are so worth your time. Don't waste it with 28 Years Later. And I, you know what, I have to say that if you're going to watch it for the ending. And then tell me, and you might be like, Ann Brothers, you are crazy. That was the weirdest shit I've ever seen. Why did you like that? And I was like, I liked it because it was so.
Because it was weird.
Because it was weird and crazy. And if you have you have people building a society who barely remember the original society, you could get anything. We could have any sort of story. So why did you deliver the sad sack one that we had to spend the last 2 hours watching? Was it 2 hours? It felt like 2 hours.
And the thing is, we've seen that story before. We've seen that story. Yeah. And so it's like, why not tell Jimmy's story? Because, to me, it's a more interesting story. So, like I said, Jimmy is this character at the beginning of the movie. His dad is a pastor. And so we see one of the things, Jimmy manages to escape the house where everybody's getting murdered. He gets to the church. His dad is there. His dad has obviously lost his mind and sacrifices himself. Jimmy hides. The last thing that the pastor dad gives him is this cross, his cross that he's wearing. And so he's like hiding from, as his father has become one of the infected and is leading the infected. And he's holding on. He's like, God, so here's little Jimmy, hiding under, something. And he's like, well, God, why have you forsaken me? And that's all we see of him until the very end. They're like,
who is that? And then you see the cross. He's wearing the cross.
You're like
upside down.
Like, because like, oh, it's Jimmy. Look at that.
Yeah. So anyway, so if you could, I would almost say watch it just so you can watch the ending, because I thought the ending was awesome.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I thought the ending was again awesome as well. So, well, there you go, you guys. Overall, skip this movie unless you want to watch it because you think the ending will be interesting. You should definitely 100% watch 28 Days Later, and some other stuff. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Well done, you guys. We're a little bit short on time this week. We didn't go as long, but we went like an hour and 10 last week, so we're
last week.
making up for lost time. So,
Mhm.
so here we go. You spent nearly an hour learning things about stuff with the Brother Sisters. Today you learned about the movie 28 Years Later, which is the sequel to the movie 28 Days Later. You should skip it unless you want to get to the end because okay, so the first 5 minutes of this movie and the last 20 minutes of this movie are actually worthwhile. The last 20 minutes of this movie is when Spike and his mom get to the doctor, and that's actually a really
Mhm.
beautiful part of the movie. It's
It's
actually really lovely. And then we get to the end where Spike meets Jimmy, and then of course it goes kind of weird wackadoodle off the rails, but it's amazing. So anyway, but the majority of this movie is not worth your time. So yeah, let us know what you thought. If you went and saw this movie and you really liked it, let us know why. If you end up seeing this movie later, we'd love to hear from you. So again, make sure that give us your questions, concerns, comments, and
confession.
confessions. That's right. Hey,
Mhm.
I'm going to do this so that we can talk about what's happening next week.
Uh-huh.
There it is. That's right, you guys. Remember, you can support us for free. Follow us, like, subscribe, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. Join us next week, you guys, when we jump into true crime. That's right. For 1 week, we are a true crime podcast, and we are going to be looking very closely at the Karen Read trial. We're also going to be talking about the docuseries Body in the Snow, which is about the Karen Read trial. You'll get to know more about that whether you want to or not. So before we hit next week, you guys, join us. I am Janice Brothers, and with me is my sister.
And brothers.
That's right. And we want you to get out there. We want you to do something smart, do something dumb, do something fun. We're out of here.
Bye.